Dark fantasy is one of my favorite genres. Monsters, those who hunt them, different kinds of cosmic horror, and all the depictions of both the best and worst sides of humankind. Although today's topic will be a bit lighter than that, I would say it's one of the best media the genre has to offer. A fusion of Gothic themes, seemingly out of place heavy machinery, guns, swords, magical abilities, all kinds of monsters, and ancient history, all in the single beautifully fleshed out world. On top of that, a story of a lone vampire hunter that fits into the world and completes it masterfully. This is Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust. A story primarily about D, a vampire, half-human, half-vampire hybrid, a being with strengths of both species and weaknesses of neither. D is hired by an old, wealthy wheelchair man because one night his daughter Charlotte was abducted by a noble vampire called megaliths. This old man hired both D and the Marcus brothers, a group of bounty hunters infamous for how ruthless they are, hired them to either bring his daughter back or kill her were she to become a vampire. And so begins a chase, interrupted only by fights and dialogue that are all equally as compelling. But the primary subject of the movie is D and how he impacts the flow of things. What and how he is, we can conclude, even from the way he is introduced. A lone building in the middle of a desert, armed gunmen hiding, pointing their rifles at a single figure slowly approaching. A person would think this is a setup, that the tall black figure is walking right into a trap. No way all of this is just a precaution against him, that he is there just to accept a job. In my opinion, this scene gives great depth to the character of D, or at least his circumstance. He isn't just an overpowered vampire hunting, eternally cool, quiet killing machine. He is also in a sort of social purgatory, being too much of a monster for the humans and being a traitor to the vampires whom he decided to hunt. Exactly this is given another dimension much later in the movie. When he tries to buy a horse in a human village, he is ambushed by several men led by the town's sheriff, the men not even letting him saddle his horse. When the old man who sold D the animal pulls out a ginormous gun from under the table, ordering the sheriff to let D go, while reminiscing about the time when he was as a child abducted by a vampire, saying he would never forget the face of his savior and how cruelly and unfairly he was treated, even after saving the town's children. This scene and the interaction D has with Layla break his shell as a character a bit. He is no longer just the tall cloaked figure, dressed in black, quiet as death, and feared whenever he goes. We are given more and more cues to why he has the blank expression he does. Most importantly, he doesn't feel like a tragic character, unable to move, helplessly marinating in his own suffering. He is maybe the most proactive in this story, not motivated just by money, like the Marcus brothers, or by love like Charlotte and Maya. Knowing his personal motivations for hunting vampires, and for why he is so eager to stop the pair trying to escape, is exactly what expands his character so much. Unlike his physical abilities, it makes him flawed. For D, hunting alone is a way for him to remove himself from his vampire heritage. On top of that, this time there's more at stake for him. Knowing what it entails, preventing the eventual birth of another vampire is of huge importance for him. These motivations make D more than just a money-hungry bounty hunter, separating him from how the Marcus brothers are portrayed. But D's character still feels unchanging. Even though he's given more and more depth as the story goes on, instead of character development, it feels like the newly discovered characteristic has always been there, it's just been uncovered. He is more so stoic than emotionless, and despite his cold demeanor and readiness to kill, he is many times more kind and compassionate than the humans we see in this story. What even more elevates the depth and impact of D is the world he moves in. From the crumbs the movie gives us, we can extrapolate that even though it feels like a medieval period in which many fantasy stories have found their home, in this case, however counterintuitive it might be, This is set in a far, far future compared to our time. And this would fully explain how there can be so many different things in this world. Human towns resembling 19th century Germany, others seemingly stuck in the late Gothic, ruins of marble, in places where nature has had more than enough time to reclaim what might have been a city, and a castle, seemingly resembling the Tower of Babel, yet clearly built millennia after what me and you would call the near future. The world of Vampire Hunter D is set way after our time, in a future where vampires have had enough time to build a civilization so advanced they would regularly go to space discovering the universe. But as of this story, the civilization has fallen long ago, vampires few and far in between, and being hunted. A world where cities are contrasted by jungles, where megalithic structures are left waiting for nothing, where monsters of unknown origins were able to offer protection for money, and where a lone Dampe is able to more than just roam free. This is a world where D fits like none other, and more importantly it helps us understand both him and how well written this story and its characters are. Another example of this is Maya and Charlotte. At the beginning, what looked like an abduction turns out to be a desperate attempt to escape a world made by lovers ready to throw away their lives for one another. It's romantic in a classical sense, and so is it tragic, even though this romance feels secondary to them being chased by bounty hunters. It is too strong to be called a subplot. This movie is no way a romance, but with the tragic story of Maya and Charlotte, it gains a new layer of meaning, building more and more on top of the foundation that is this world. It is in no way a lesser addition to the world building than anything else, strengthening what the viewer deduced about both vampires and humans of the story. It's gothic, dark, and as is the case for many stories that are inspired by ideas of romanticism, the conflict of dream and reality, the individual and the society, the emotional and the rational, this conflict is ever so present. The story of forbidden love has long become a trope, but in this case it feels kind of refreshing. Although the reason might be that there were no cowboys, monster baddies, or vampire rockets in Romeo and Juliet, but with all seriousness, it is an interesting story, as much in the romance as in the way it helps establish the characters, not just as purely lovers, but rather individuals fighting their fears and impulses, but seemingly never the doubt in their decision to flee together. Besides Dee, they are also being followed by the Marcus brothers, who lack Dee's elegance. They are brute, nearly animalistic in their way of dealing with bounties. They are arrogant, yet completely justified in thinking they could succeed. They are human. This shows both as the ruthless violence filling their time hunting, and the pure sadness they can show as a close one dies. Their abilities aren't much out the ordinary, use of melee and long-range weapons, roaming around in little steel fortress on wheels. But one of them stands out. Bedridden, unable to fight most of the time, but when put in a coma, able to astral project with the destructive power none of his brothers possess. I'm not sure how that fits into the Marcus brothers being a symbol of humanity in this story. Maybe how even as the body withers away, the human spirit stays unbreakable, striving towards its goal, as when astral projecting, the man doesn't just seem healthy, but full of life. Or maybe it's not that deep, and they are just the stereotypical macho bounty hunters. Another thing that's fascinating to me is the monsters. Near the middle of the film, Dee walks into what seems to be a city of monsters carved into a mountain, monsters that swear to protect anyone who pays them, even willing to lose their lives in the process. Hired by Maya, they help him temporarily escape Dee, and despite them having abilities a human wouldn't be able to deal with, they are no match for Dee, although the Marcus brothers weren't as lucky. Maya, thanks to the sacrifices of the monsters, is able to make it to Camilla's colossal Gothic castle, not having much time to rest, as Dee isn't far behind. Not having much luck there, as Camilla is a sadistic ghost cursed to roam her empty castle, tricking Maya by promising him and Charlotte a way out of this world. Using some sort of magic, she tricks them, trying to sacrifice Charlotte to make herself come back to life. At the end, it is Dee who is able to kill Camilla, having to fight Maya right after. Although the fight is cut short, as it turns out Charlotte has died, and as the castle begins to crumble, Dee alongside Layla escapes the ruins, taking only enough proof to collect the bounty. Another part of the story I'd like to talk about is the simple yet weird relationship of Dee and Layla. Neither of these characters is on its own one-dimensional, quite the opposite. Dee is elegant and nearly otherworldly. Layla is very much his contrast. She's angry, scared, rough when fighting, and compared to Dee, she has the human part he seems to lack. These two never officially partnered in battle, nor have they had a romantic interaction. Even the platonic between them seems estranged. Their relationship starts as help and repaying of a favor. The only thing we know of that connects them is a promise that the one that lives longer goes to the funeral of the other. The last we see of them together is when leaving Camilla's castle, as Charlotte and Maya's escape to the City of Night becomes purely symbolic. The whole story ends as a little girl runs away from a funeral towards a figure all in black, asking if he knew her grandmother. Dee replying, "I just came to keep a promise I made to an old friend. She was afraid no one would mourn her death. I'm glad she was wrong," leaving right after. An ending deserving of such a well-made film, stunning both story-wise and visually. Right from character design and landscapes, all the way to the action sequences and effects. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust must be one of my favorite pieces of media, anime or otherwise, and I would recommend it to anyone willing to spare the hour and 40 minutes it takes to watch it. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe. Be sure to leave your opinion in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and bye.